Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, and it is now 9:11 on December 11th, 2025, and I'm going to call to order today's special meeting of the board. We are meeting in person this morning with commissioners, staff, and members of the public in attendance. We have all but one commissioner available for the discussion today. Video of today's meeting is also being streamed live online. You know the deal, www.sdhc.org. To accommodate additional members of the public who may wish to participate in today's meeting, we have set up an overflow room down the hall. A live stream video of today's meeting will be shown in the overflow room. Speaker slips are available in that room as well. And so members of the public who wish to provide comments to the board today, please be prepared to fill out your name and bring the speaker slips over to our Vice President, Scott Marshall, who is on the side of the room. At the appropriate time for those of you in the overflow room, staff will escort you here to the boardroom. Members of the public in the boardroom or in the overflow room still need to fill out a speaker slip. Once you've filled out a speaker slip, you will submit it, and in a moment I will be proposing that agenda item 103 be placed on the consent agenda for today's meeting. So for those of you who wish to speak on 103, you put on the consent agenda. It will be on the consent agenda, but we will still take your slip. To speak in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold speaker slip. To speak in opposition, please submit a pink speaker slip. And those who wish to address the board about a topic that is not on the agenda, please fill out a white speaker slip. You will have 3 minutes each to provide your comments about agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of you wish to provide non-agenda public comments on a single agenda item, we will limit you to 1 minute each. Organized group presentations by those who support or oppose an item shall be limited to no more than 15 minutes per side. So when I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. Now it is time for the non-agenda public comments. All right, we have 2, and we will start here with Beverly St. Germain.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. St. Germain.
Did you get a copy of my notes?
I do have a copy. I think everybody up here has a copy of your note.
Okay, what else could I do to prevent this from continuing? I've talked to the manager, security, and it just seems to go on and on and on. They're just scouring up my son truck like there's no tomorrow. I mean, the truck was in an accident of last year, so it finally got fixed, got repainted on the front end, and now they're wanting to mark it up. I mean, they've caught somebody throwing a rock at the windshield, cracking the windshield, and I'm not the troublemaker over there. I mind my own business. I don't bother the people over there. I'm just tired of it. What can I do?
Okay. We're gonna actually send some people to meet with you to discuss this. Lisa, will help.
Beto and Emmanuel, can you? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Tell you what, Miss Day, you and wait.
No, you can
No,
go.
they'll come out with you now. They'll find a little place for you guys to
Okay.
sit quietly and talk together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is Raquel Merrill.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't know if you remember me.
I do.
My name's Raquel Merrill.
Yes.
I was here last month asking for your help because the San Diego Housing Commission is foreclosing on my home. And today, 9 weeks later, I provided all the documents to your team, everything that they've asked for, and I am no closer to understanding what is going on with my case because nobody will meet with me. As I said last time I was here, I'm a flight attendant based in Seattle, and I commute from my home in San Diego. Your loan department, without thoroughly investigating, sent me a notice of default which stated, "We have become aware that you may not be occupying your property as your primary residence. Rather, you may be residing in Seattle, Washington." I asked what evidence they have that I don't live in my home, and they replied that there is no investigation report to provide. I provided everything your team has asked for to confirm that I do live there. My government documents, my tax returns, my driver's license, my passport, my bank statements, my loans, my credit card statements, and all of my bills showing the address to that condo, as well as letters from my neighbors stating that they've seen me there and see me around the neighborhood. At the beginning of October, your staff said they would review everything and get back to me in a week or so, but they didn't. I came here a month ago asking for your help. Your senior VP talked to me for a few minutes and said he would review all the details of my loan and get back to me the following week, and he didn't. When I reached out to him, he said he needed more time to meet with his team and would reach out to me in another week, and he didn't. On the third week, he passed me off to another VP and said she would be able to provide me with an update, but she didn't. I reached out to both of them and their staff this week again, asking where things stand and asking for 30 minutes of their time just to update me, and nobody responded. I also submitted a notice of cure of default to multiple members of your team, but again, no response. It is your obligation to accept a proper cure and remove the default. But beyond that, you're the San Diego Housing Commission. Isn't your mission to help people like me in your program stay in their homes? As I said, it's been 9 weeks and nobody will sit down to talk to me. After Christmas break, my home of 19 years will go up for sale. I've made every payment on time. I've followed the rules. I've acted in good faith. So here I am again, just asking for your help.
Okay, Lisa, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
You want to take this?
Hi, Ms. Merrill. Thanks for coming. We did hear you last time. We took it very seriously. I've been working with our deputy CEO, doing a full, thorough review and follow-up. And his name is Jeff Davis, and he's here today, and he's going to meet with you because we do take every concern seriously. And I'm sorry it took so long, but we don't want to rush these things. We want to do a thorough investigation. So he's going to meet with you after this. So if you could just check in with Scott or Susie in the back,
Okay.
and they'll make sure they get you connected to our deputy CEO.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Merrill. That concludes the non-agenda public comment items. And we will now move to commissioners for any comments they may have. Vice Chair Cutler, I know that you have question and comment because I already see Casey fidgeting.
Can we get our report? Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to provide a monthly update on our coordinated shelter intake program. So in the month of November, we received 2,442 referrals for shelter, of which 199 were able to be accommodated, so that's an 8% completion rate. Top three reasons, similar to previous months, 40% were not completed due to not having a male top bunk, 18% were due to a no male bottom bunk, and then 11% were due to no female bottom bunk. I'll throw in a fourth just because we've been talking about families a lot, but 8% were due to no family bed. So since the beginning of the year, so since July 1st of this fiscal year, we've received 12,275 referrals for shelter, of which 1,236 have been met. That's a 10% completion rate on the year. Very similar, 34% are due to no male top bunk, 14% for no male bottom, and just about equal, 13% were no female bottom, and then 11% were due to no shelter beds for families. I know in the last couple months we've been monitoring a trend of referrals that have been increased. So my team has had an opportunity to really do a deep dive into the data. We've really enhanced our database to hone in on data that we're really interested in and looking at more. And so we've been doing this for the last few months, so they had a chance to do a deep dive. And they're still in the process of conducting an analysis, but we want to share kind of a few things that we are starting to see come up. So one development is that in addition to providing a summary of the referrals, moving forward, we'll also be able to provide an account of how many unique individuals are comprised of the total referrals, which I think will be helpful to understand the number of persons versus how many times they're requesting shelter. So as I mentioned, so for example, for November, we received 2,442 referrals, which comprise of 868 unique households. So obviously what that's telling us is folks are trying multiple times to get shelter and are unsuccessful.
Quick follow-up on that. So is this the first time that we'll be distinguishing as we collect? And are we able to look at that retroactively, or just go forward we'll be able to distinguish between unique individual and
We'll be able to report this out moving forward.
Moving forward, okay. Mm-hmm. And then, so I would note then as we start to look at that, I'm also very interested in what we can learn about what happens with repeat referrals and any information we have about the outcomes related to how many times people have made a request for shelter, because I do, and this is, I think, the first time that we'll really have the data to look at this, but like, I do have a general question and concern about sort of what happens with credibility and effectiveness when people repeatedly get a negative answer.
Sure.
In terms of, like, do they keep requesting, or do people, the more times they hear no, begin becoming more resistant?
We're on the same page. Definitely,
figured.
Jonathan and I have been talking about this at length. I think there's a lot of things, right? It's showing that our outreach teams are making consistent contacts and trying to build relationships, which is great. But it also may indicate that we're kind of focused on the same universe of
People,
individuals, right? And that we're not. One of the other things that we we'll be able to start looking at is referral demographics, so we can look at subpopulations and also trends by providers, because you may recall previously our number one referring partner was the HRC. Since that's gone away and we've made some changes to how referrals are made through 211, it's actually streamlining our referral process, which is another reason you see a big jump in referrals. So there's a lot of factors that we have to, and that's why I said we're still doing a very deep dive, but at least we can see, and one piece of data I forgot to say that, so although there's been a 25% increase in the aggregate number of referrals that we've received between July and November, it's only a 5% increase, which is still notable, of people, unique individuals seeking shelter. So, but yes, we look forward to
25%
reporting
increase
more
in
in the future.
referrals since July.
12,275.
It sounds like people have applied 3 times. It's 800.
Yeah, it's a 25% increase in the referrals and a 5% increase in the unique individuals.
Okay, that's what he said. Okay.
But it sounds like the average person, if there's 800 unique, has applied 3 times. Now you're going to have to relate that to the 149 that did get placed. And you don't know, I mean, now, that's the problem with data. Now we got to start going down. And now you're going, well, the 149 people, they had applied 3 times. And so, anyway.
And we're excited that we're actually going to be able to start looking at that data, so that for the folks that are admitted, because right now, our system of care doesn't have a prioritization for shelters. It never has in the community standards, so it could lay down the foundation for trying to identify, like, ways to prioritize folks, and then.
I mean, at a minimum, I think it'll better help us understand the effectiveness and ineffectiveness of our different interventions,
Sure.
because right now it's a little bit of a black box. We have the referrals, and we have the services that people get, but everything behind that is, this is going to be the first thing kind of clear. So thank you very much for both of you for putting that together. I think that's going to be.
I want to thank Jonathan and his team, because it was it's quite a bit of data review and analysis, but it's worth it for sure.
Yeah, I appreciate the work, and I would say that you know, the top bunk, bottom bunk component is the one thing I don't know that we're you know, because some of the people that are coming back that are no longer unique are coming back and making the same request, and when we have the same problem as it relates to the bunk space, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, Casey. All right. Any further?
That's true. If we did find 150 people out of 800, then we're pushing 20% instead of 8%.
Instead of 8%.
I mean,
That's a good point.
Yep.
figures don't lie, but liars figure. But
Yep.
if you wanted to say, okay, they were part of the 800, and we did, you know, I can't say I'm excited about 20%, but it's a heck of a lot better than
8% by far. Yeah.
What he's probably saying is maybe we're putting more people into housing than we thought.
Yeah.
But it's still a lousy number at 20%.
Yeah, and I think as the team continues to dig in, I think we'll learn more over time when we can start looking at this new data from a trend analysis perspective.
Yeah, and just to kind of clarify, yeah, I completely agree, and that'll be part of the value. I think that the real practical, tangible value will be in us understanding what the effect is of how many times people are requesting and whether they burn out, whether they stop requesting. And part of the reason, Casey, why this is so important is that I think when you're not in these rooms, hearing these reports every month, if you're a member of the public, your assumption when somebody turns down shelter or isn't getting into shelter for whatever reason is that it's happening in isolation. They don't want to be in the shelter. And I think what we're getting a clearer and clearer picture of here is that there's a whole backstory building up to the issues we have with shelter resistance, which has to do with us not being able to deliver what we're essentially promising people and them getting reasonably upset and not believing us anymore. So I think anything we can do to get a clearer picture of, because maybe, to your point, Commissioner Cushman, maybe the solution here is, what we need to grapple with is maybe it's not actually helping us as much to get numerous duplicative referrals when we don't have something to connect the person to.
Sure.
And maybe asking a fifth or sixth time becomes counterproductive. But we don't really know the answer to that because this is going to be the first clear picture we've got.
Right, and I think that's what Casey was saying when she says it'll create a better foundation for like decision making. So she mentioned our community standards, which are set by our continuum of care. That's pretty standard across the country. At this point, we don't have a shelter prioritization, but maybe we have to look at our most vulnerable that are on our streets and think about it from that perspective too. So that's hard to do when you don't know who's asking, right? And you don't understand the deeper demographics. So this will be an opportunity to help us have more informed conversations. So that can be something that is considered, right? So it sort of aligns with the fact that we've been talking publicly and going through public noticing about closing our waiting list because we feel like at this point it's just misleading folks and creating false hope. So is there a consideration that that's also helping from a shelter access perspective? We have worked really hard as a system across the city, particularly to create a no wrong door access to shelter, to make it a lot easier, and so people don't have to call one shelter after another, after another, after another. But so that helps with access to making the ask, but it doesn't necessarily create more resources, right? So I think it's a good conversation to be thinking about as we look at trend analysis going forward is, do we need to look at how we prioritize differently? Are we creating, to your point, false expectations that we can't meet?
Yeah.
Maybe next month when Casey does this, it'd be interesting to see if Summer Steffen's app that she came up with was going to, it'd be interesting to tie that in and see, is that helping?
So teams already work. Yeah, Casey, can you share?
Sure. So I'm part of the steering committee for the Shelter Ready app, and so we actually convene next Wednesday for the first time, but we've actually been working very closely with their developer to try to align, because if there is an opportunity to use that as our tool, we will do so. But obviously we want to be able to maintain the ability to do this type of data, so it might take us a little bit to get there, but they're very open to working with us and adapting it to collect the same level of data.
Yeah, and the intention is that way we have data across the system that
Right.
really meets the needs, not just in the city of San Diego, but in the county. So the work that her team and her development team have done around creating this tool and then being willing to work with us so that, we can bring our lessons learned into it she's been a phenomenal partner in that regard.
I have one quick question regarding this. So just to get more clarity, when a person comes in for housing, there's not a bed available. Then they have to come back in the next day. So obviously they're going to have, our numbers are going to be skewed because they're coming in 5 times the same person. Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, the person making the referral is the outreach worker. It's
Okay.
not the person themselves. So like we were talking about, it shows that we are re-engaging with folks multiple times to try to get them into shelter, which is, I guess, good that they're connected to a real person and not just calling themselves. But yes.
So how many times would the worker reach out to you regarding the same person? Let's say in a week, if they haven't got a bed the first night, they're gonna call again the next day, right?
Yeah,
So that's
I don't
two
know if we
contacts,
have any,
three
like-
contacts.
I mean, Commissioner Jackson, that's the point. I think that's the point that where the data will provide more clarity, because I go back to the top bunk issue, which we've discussed for a long time.
Right.
If a referral says, hey, I need to find a bed that is a bottom bunk, I have a senior that can't be in a top bunk, and there are no bottom bunks, they're going to keep calling because they want to try and get that senior placed. Yeah, and maybe tomorrow there is one because somebody moves out. So that's why. It's they're going to keep asking until they find a bottom bunk for placement. Okay. All right. Seeing no further commissioner comments, we will move on. There is no CEO's report today because but we will move to the approval of the minutes for November 7th for the special meeting of the board. No speaker slips has been submitted for that. So since no speaker slips exist, commissioners, are there any changes or motion, or do we have a motion for the minutes for the November 7th, 2025 special meeting of the board? Motion by Commissioner Jackson, second by Vice Chair Klumpner. All right, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Any opposed? None. No abstention. One abstention. All right. Thank you very much, Melissa. And the motion carries with one abstention. As I said at the start of today's meeting, I'm proposing that item 103 be on the consent agenda for today. This is the Housing Authority's designation and identification of the Housing Commission agency representatives for the labor negotiations. No speaker slips have been submitted for this item, so this concludes the public comment period for this item. Commissioners, any comments or questions? Or if not, we have a motion by Commissioner Cushman. Second. Commissioner Axter, Commissioner. Second. Remember, I told you watching, it's that holiday season, so good. Thank you very much. All those in favor, we must say, right. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. That motion carries unanimously. So next we'll move on to item 100, and this is the loan recommendation for the 40th and Alpha Street Apartments. We will take public comments after the staff presentation. Senior Vice President of Real Estate Development, Colin Miller, and Director of Multifamily Underwriting, Michelle Muniz, will be presenting this item. And Colin, Michelle, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chair Mitchell and Commissioners. The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $1,383,000 for the acquisition of 40th and Alpha Street Apartments. The 40th and Alpha Street project will consist of Okay. 40th and Alpha Street Apartments is the proposed new construction of a 92-unit development, which is made up of 91 affordable units and one unrestricted manager's unit in the South Crest community of San Diego. The project is located at 3947 to 3953 and 3963 Z Street in Council District 8. The proposed project's 91 affordable units are comprised of 1- and 2-bedroom units for individuals and families with income levels ranging from 30 to 60% of the San Diego's area median income, which equates to $39,700 a year for a 2-person household to no more than $89,340 per year for a 3-person household. These units will remain affordable for a term of 55 years. Unit amenities include a refrigerator, stove, oven, dishwasher, and garbage disposal. Site amenities include a leasing office, a community room and computer lab, laundry facilities, bicycle parking, a courtyard, and play area. The 40th and Alpha Street project will consist of 2 buildings. Building 1 is a 6-story building with 2 elevators. The first level will include parking, a leasing office, community room, and building systems equipment. The remaining 5 levels will consist of 78 residential units, laundry rooms, a 1,200 square foot courtyard, and an additional 452 square feet of common area amenity space. Building 2 is a 3-story building and will include a 2,400 square foot childcare center and an 1,800 square foot outdoor play area on the first level. The remaining 2 levels will consist of 14 residential units. The developer of the project is Community Housing Works, a nationally recognized nonprofit developer headquartered in San Diego. They operate nearly 5,000 units at 52 communities statewide. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary loan of up to $1,383,000 through the fiscal year 2026 Notice of Funding Availability to be used for the acquisition of the property. Community Housing Works Achieve Resident Services will provide social services to all residents of the community at no charge. These services will include community activities and classes such as financial well-being, health and wellness, and next generation success. Say San Diego is the proposed provider for the Child Care Center. This slide shows the site map of the development in red and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores. The site is located within a third of a mile from the closest bus stop depicted by the blue symbols. Additionally, a grocery store, the yellow symbols, and 2 public schools in green are located within 1/2 mile from the development. The total development cost of the project will be just under $50 million, which equates to a per unit cost of approximately $540,000. The developer is using multiple funding sources, including bond finance tax-exempt and taxable permanent loans, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, loans from the City and County of San Diego, as well as tax credit equity. The Housing Commission loan in the amount of $1,383,000 accounts for approximately 2.8% of all sources. Units will be restricted from 30 to 60% of the area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $930 to $2,233 per month for the 1 and 2 bedroom units. These units will be affordable to San Diegans with incomes ranging from $39,700 up to $89,340 for 2 and 3 person households. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will close on the acquisition by March 2nd, 2026, and then apply for bonds and 4% tax credits in May of 2026. If awarded in August, the developer will close on construction financing and begin construction in February 2027. The project is anticipated to complete construction in January 2029. Here is the architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as a representative from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Excellent job. Love the map. Love the price per door. We have not received any speaker slips on this item, so that concludes the public comment period for this item. Commissioners, questions or motion or Vice Chair Clemmer?
So I'm going to just ask a couple questions because this seems slightly different than how we normally do this, in that the residual receipts loan is separate from the other financing that we're usually approving a project that, how do I put this? The CDBG funds are usually rolled into the rest of our NOFA, right? And we're usually not approving just the one piece on its own, or?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
So to answer your question, this is a loan that's being used to acquire the land.
Right.
And this is not something that we normally do. However, the reason for that we're making this request or this proposal is the CDBG funds have to be used for acquisition, and they have a very short timeline in order to be expended. And so the commission and staff have worked diligently to get a NOFA out, identify projects, and then make these recommendations. So our loan would acquire the property. The developer would then secure the rest of their financing and build the building. So our loan is only for acquisition.
And the developer down the road would be repaying the loan.
So our loan would be repaid through residual receipts. So when the property is built and operational, like other commission loans that you've heard us present before, we would receive a portion of the cash flow when available for repayment. But our loan would not be paid off at construction or permanent. Our loan will be part of the 55-year financing.
And in past projects that are further down that lifespan of the project, that loan can get rolled into, for example, if we were to extend the affordability provisions later for another 55 years or something, that loan can get wrapped up into encouraging the preservation in future years.
Correct. So there are a number of things that can happen when a developer has an existing project and they want to do a refinance. In some cases, our loan is repaid in full. In the past, we have had some loans where we have recast the debt and extended the term of the affordability. So allowing the developer to roll our loan forward. In return, what the San Diego Housing Commission and San Diegans get is additional affordability years.
So I mainly just want to point out that CDBG funds originate from the federal government here, and most uses of CDBG funding that I'm aware of are one time. They go out, they're a grant, the community development block grants, and then the money never is seen again. So since we have it as like a standalone here, I just want to point out this is really interesting to me because the money, the CDBG funds that go into multifamily affordable housing construction actually stay circulating in our community for decades to come, either in that they're getting paid back to the commission, which can then use the revenue from that for example, assisting additional acquisitions, or it gets rolled into extending the affordability, in which case that money is still 55 years from now going to be continuing to keep affordability in San Diego. So when I kind of learned this, I sort of thought, boy, I wish there was more CDBG funds available for multifamily housing, because that is financially probably the best deal I've ever heard of for CDBG funds. Not to knock any of the other uses. I know that program does a lot for many communities, but I think that's fairly exciting, and I hope that we are both actively collecting everywhere that it is that we have older loans coming in, and also using it to extend those when appropriate. So thank you. I'd be happy to make the motion.
All right. Yes, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments? I want to echo what Vice Chair Clemmer said when we went over the briefing on this. I was unaware of this structure, but it is fantastic, and I agree with you. This is the best use of CDBG, and not knocking anybody else's CDBG grant, but this is meaningful, tangible, and appropriate, and an amazing use. So, all right, we have a motion and a second. No further comments. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries unanimously. Great job. This is going to be a wonderful project to visit. Okay. We will move now to item 101, and this is the loan recommendation for Crest on Imperial Apartments. And we will take public comments after the staff presentation. And Colin and Michelle, you have the floor still. Please begin when you're ready.
The item before you today is a request to approve a proposed residual receipt loan in an amount not to exceed $4,270,000 for the acquisition of Crest on Imperial Apartments. Crest on Imperial Apartments is the proposed new construction of a 100-unit development, which is made up of 99 affordable units and 1 unrestricted manager's unit. The project is located at 101 50th Street, 520 and 530 to 536 Imperial Avenue in the Lincoln Park community in the Encanto Neighborhoods Community Plan area in Council District 4. The proposed project's 99 affordable units are comprised of 2- and 3-bedroom units for individuals and families with income levels ranging from 50 to 70% of the San Diego's area median income, which equates to $74,450 per year to $115,800 per year for 3 to 4 person households. These units will remain affordable for a term of 55 years. The site consists of 4 parcels on 1.34 acres and is currently improved with 6 vacant structures that will be demolished prior to the start of construction. There will be 1 5-story building equipped with 2 elevators. The unit mix will include 67 2-bedroom and 32 3-bedroom units and 1 unrestricted manager's unit. Unit amenities include energy-efficient appliances, water-sense fixtures, and vinyl plank flooring. Site amenities include leasing and services offices, laundry rooms, bicycle storage and repair space, a community room, a computer lab, barbecue and outdoor patio areas, a playground, and a basketball court. The developer of the project is MAC, a nonprofit developer headquartered in San Diego. Founded in 1965, MAC has developed 941 units to date and has successfully completed a project using Housing Commission capital funds. With respect to the proposed development, the Housing Commission awarded a preliminary loan of up to $4,270,000 through the fiscal year 2026 Notice of Funding Availability to be used for the acquisition of the property. Hyder Property Management will provide property management services, and MAC will provide social services to all residents of the community at no charge. These services will include adult education, credit counseling, job search assistance, and skill building classes. This slide shows the site map of the development highlighted in red and the proximity to transit, schools, and grocery stores in yellow, blue, and green. Mass transit, a full-scale grocery store, and a public school are all located within 1/2 mile of the project site. The total development cost of the project will be $47,283,380, which equates to a per-unit cost of $472,834. The developer is using multiple funding sources, including a permanent loan, certificated state tax credits, a proposed loan from the Housing Commission, as well as tax credit equity. The Housing Commission loan in the amount of $4,270,000 accounts for approximately 9% of all sources. Units will be restricted at 50 to 70% of the area median income for 55 years. Rents will range from $1,861 to $2,895 per month for the 2- and 3-bedroom units. These units will be affordable to San Diegans with incomes from $74,450 to $115,800 for 3- and 4-person households. Should these actions be approved today, the developer will apply for bonds and 4% tax credits in February 2026 and will close escrow on the purchase of the property by March. If awarded a bond and tax credit allocation in May 2026, the developer will close on construction financing and begin construction in November 2026. The project is anticipated to complete construction in September 2028. Here is the architect's rendering of the site. Staff recommends that the board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides. This concludes the presentation. Colin and I, as well as a representative from the developer, are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Michelle, wonderful presentation. No speaker slips have been submitted for this item, and thus we will move right into commissioner comments or questions. None? Okay. I will entertain a motion in a second. Motion by Vice Chair Klempner, second by Commissioner Jackson. I would say this is also another wonderful project. Love the per door cost, and for this corridor, this will be a wonderful addition to this corridor. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, team, for the fast work, too.
This is excellent.
Yeah, I was amazed. Application November 13, 2025.
We're cooking, moving the money. No time to spare. Michelle, you can go home now. I know you've been. I know we've kept you here this whole time. So, all right, we'll move next to item 102, and this is the fiscal year 2026 Moving to Work Annual Plan Amendment Approval. We will take public comments after the staff presentation, and our President and CEO, Lisa Jones, will introduce this item. Lisa, please be when you're ready.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to the workshop that was done on November 7th, as well as a very robust public noticing process and a lot of community outreach and engagement, which we'll talk about during the presentation. So we're going to walk through the presentation today. Sometimes when we do workshops and we come back for approval, we just ask for approval, but this is a significant updates in our community. We're doing a lot of outreach, so we want to take every opportunity we can to talk publicly about this. So we're going to go through it in still quite a bit of detail. So thank you for your patience as we do that. So we shared last month and have been sharing with our community-based organizations and all the different partners we work with that our main struggle we are having with our voucher program is that we're essentially spending more than we're getting. Federal funding is insufficient to support the rental assistance for our existing voucher holders. That doesn't take into consideration the 76,000 plus families we have on our wait list today, which grows by about 1,000 families every month. That is just the vouchers that we are supporting today. So we are proposing updates to the way we calculate the family contribution amount, which is the amount the family pays towards the rent, while the voucher program covers the rest of the contract rent through our rental assistance program. We haven't updated our family contribution, hasn't been adjusted since January 2020. So we're also sort of aligning with sort of a standard practice we've done through our Path to Success program. And Azu Senna will talk about that a little bit. We are really continuing to see rising rental assistance costs amidst diminishing federal funds. And we'll talk a little bit about why we are both seeing rising costs. We kind of all know why we're seeing diminishing funds, but why we are continuing to see rising costs. What's important to understand is that proposed updates will help us continue to serve as many existing housing choice voucher families as possible and significantly minimize the risk of having to terminate voucher assistance for any existing families. That is what these recommendations are specifically trying to avoid, is to make sure that people can stay on our program and remain stably housed. Without these changes, we estimate that approximately 1,700 families, which represents about 6,000 individuals currently on the voucher program today, would lose their rental assistance. That is essentially the train wreck that we're trying to avoid. We do not want to see people losing rental assistance and potentially losing their housing. We want to really work with them to help them make this transition and stay successful and continue to avail themselves not only of the rental assistance, but all the other community connections that we help them make, including our workforce readiness program. So we have seen since 2020, this is as of August of this year, an 80% increase in our average housing assistance payment per family. That is more than market, depending on the area of the city that you live in. You can see anywhere between about a 30 to 40% increase in the rental market around the same period. But we, as an agency, as a board, as policymakers at the city, have really focused on what are our high priorities and the highest and best use of our vouchers, which is serving a large population of elderly disabled families on our program. About 65% of the families on our program are either elderly or disabled. We have done a lot in permanent supportive housing to create more units for people who have experienced chronic homelessness with significant barriers and that need to get back into a stable environment with a roof over their head. This is an incredibly important and valuable investment. It also costs us more to do that. These are folks generally with very low income and very high need. So it costs about $400 more a month to support a permanent supportive housing voucher than a tenant-based voucher. And we have also done a lot through project-based vouchers. So project-based vouchers are an incredibly important catalyst in developing new deeply affordable housing. So when we think about new housing stock, bringing more housing stock into our community, project-based vouchers are a key component of that work and really help our developers make sure that those programs pencil and that we also have deeply affordable units, including like as low as under 30% AMI. That costs us about $300 more a month per unit to do PBV. So these are investments that have helped raise the cost over time, but they're also investments that we have all sort of approved, agreed on, and align with our values as an agency and I think as a community. So very worthwhile investments. But that helps us understand why our costs are increasing at a higher rate than market is. So what that equates to between the lack of federal funding, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and the increased costs is that we are spending about $26.6 million more this year, in this fiscal year, between July of 25 and June of 26, in rental assistance than we'll be receiving from HUD. That's what we're anticipating based on the funding we're receiving today, what we anticipate the funding looking like when we do finally have an approved budget by HUD, and what our trend analysis is in our expenditures. That is where that 1,700 approximately families comes from that we're basically supporting that we don't have the money to support. And that is essentially the main problem we're solving for. what that looks like in an overall voucher program, because we have our rental assistance program, we also have several boutique voucher programs, and also our workforce development program, and we have staffing costs as well, is that we anticipate spending about $35.5 million more this year than we anticipate receiving from HUD. So we expect a $17.8 million reserve balance by the end of this year. We're very fortunate that we have about $53 million in HUD-held reserves right now, that we will be spending down most of that in this year. And in addition to the rising costs, the reason the funding is so insufficient is that we, right now, once again, are in a continuing resolution. And our continuing resolution funding is based on the last formal approved budget we had as a nation, which was in spring, around March, April of 2024. And that was based on data and actuals from 2023 from HUD. So that funding since then has really not taken into account inflation and cost increases between the end of 23 to where we are today. So our continuing resolution is not sufficient enough right now to meet our needs. And with all the conversations we've had with appropriators at a federal level in Congress, both chief appropriations staff and appropriators on the appropriations committee, we anticipate that when we get to a final budget, it is going to be based on the continuing resolution with some decreases in costs. That's where we end up really in the state we are today and the challenge that we have to solve for. So as we look ahead, we're solving for a $12 million deficit compared to what's left in our reserves in 27, $29 million in 28, and about a $27 million in 29. So that is really what we're trying to solve for. I talked a little bit in our last workshop that as goes the voucher program, so goes the agency. You know, we can't just look at the voucher program to solve these challenges. Obviously, rental assistance is by far the biggest cost in our voucher program, about $26 million a month that goes out into the community, but it also helps with administrative expenses. It helps support the building we're in, helps support our back office departments. And frankly, a lot of the changes that we've seen over the last year are also affecting other costs in other areas of our agency. So as we try to problem solve for this, I just want to be clear that we are not just trying to problem solve for these challenges in the voucher program. We are looking at cost containment across our agency so that we are doing as much as we can to support our voucher staff and our voucher residents. So we talked basically about two options. We have the need to just terminate assistance for up to 1,700 families, which is about 6,000 people. I don't think anybody that is sitting at this table or in the audience or any of our partners would think that that'd be an acceptable way forward. That is a worst case scenario, and frankly, what some housing authorities are facing. So when I talk about our budget challenges and deficit, it's important to understand that across the country, the HUD voucher program is in one of the greatest shortfalls it has been in decades. So it is not just our agency who is struggling, spending more than we're getting. We are seeing this across the country in high-cost areas. When you think of high rental markets, certainly California, the West Coast, the very East Coast, those rim states are seeing an even greater impact. But this is not just us. HUD is seeing one of the largest deficits in their voucher program they've ever had. And to the best of our understanding, not that HUD is terribly forthcoming, our understanding is the funding they have to try to make up those differences is falling very, very short. So we're not the only one faced with these challenges. We are, though, unique in that we have other options, which is option 2. And Azucena will talk a little bit more about why we're able to go a different route rather than just terminate assistance. So option 2 is really approving what's in front of you today, the changes to our Path to Success program, and spreading the deficit across our program so that everybody pays more but is able to remain on the program and continue to avail themselves of voucher assistance. So when we make those Path to Success updates, we still have that significant deficit that we're dealing with this year. But when we look at 26, 27, 28, and 29, we see in 27 that we have about a $2.5 million deficit, so a very small deficit we'll have to problem solve for. In 28, that essentially cancels it out, so it essentially balances out in 28. And in 29, we see a small amount of reserves. So what that means is we're basically anticipating about $9 million in savings in the first year of implementation. That's a partial year. Once fully implemented, between $30 to $31 million in annual savings. And even though there's a small buildup of reserves in 29, I want to be clear, building up reserves isn't the goal right now. Although it's important to have them, and frankly, it's better to have about a month's worth of reserves if we can, in case we have a government shutdown where HUD does not have money available for us. That 11.5 million of what is still a $300 million budget is a very small percentage when we think of having any kind of buffer and the possibility that there could be further changes at a federal level. So we see that as a pretty small margin. So I'm going to hand it over to Azucena to walk us through the next steps.
Good morning. So as Lisa indicated, the problem that we're facing is nationwide. All housing authorities are facing very similar situations that we are in as far as having to shrink their program size in order to balance it within the funding that is available and certain to come in. One of the things that has been imperative for us to tap into that helps us stand apart from most traditional housing authorities is our moving to work designation. So we are one of the original 39 housing authorities across the country to have received the designation. And what it does is allows us to design innovative solutions or programming to help increase housing opportunities, to use the federal funds more expeditiously, and quite frankly, it's our avenue that we can use in order to make changes to the way that we calculate the voucher families' contributions, which will then allow us to balance somewhat our budget. So it is through this designation that we're able to make some changes to our Path to Success program, where we will be asking all of our families to contribute more so that we can eliminate and prevent terminating up to 1,700 families from rental assistance from our program, which isn't a light decision. So our Path to Success initiative is a moving to work program that we implemented in 2013. It's a rent calculation methodology that we implemented, and we went over the details this November when we presented this information the very first time. What you see on the screen is the way that families' contributions are calculated currently. And it is through the Path to Success program that we're going to be looking to make changes so that families can contribute more as their housing cost. Some of the changes that we're looking to make will be for our work-able households. So one of the things that we're looking to do is to expand the minimum contribution amounts that our work-able families will be making. So currently we have a minimum contribution amounts for families that have either one or two adults in the household. We're looking to expand that and add in a minimum contribution amounts for families that have 3 or more adults. We are also looking to adopt a 40% percentage of families' adjusted income as their contribution amount. And we are no longer going to be using the income ranges that are included in the Path to Success. Earlier, Lisa mentioned that the last time that we adjusted the minimum contribution amounts was in 2020, and that's true. It was January 2020. At that time, the minimum wage in the city of San Diego was $13 an hour in 2020. So the minimum wage is set to increase to $17.75 in January of 2026. So we will be making adjustments to the minimum contribution amounts that our work-able families are subject to paying. Here you'll see a slide where we give some examples of those minimum contribution amounts using that new minimum wage amount. The way that the minimum contribution amounts will be established is we will assume that for every adult in a work-able household, up to 3, will be working 25 hours a week at the $17.75. And they will then contribute 30% of those earnings as their minimum contribution amounts. So For example, it's $580 for a household that has one adult in the work-able household, and you see that same methodology sort of duplicated across the households with 3 or more. However, our families that are designated as elderly or disabled will not have minimum contribution amounts. They instead will see an increase from 28.5% to 32% of their adjusted income. One of the things that was and is a major consideration when we were considering increases or changes to the family's contribution is how this will impact our families. In order for us to best support the families as we transition and make these changes to the amounts that they will be contributing to, it was imperative that we knew exactly how these changes would impact our families so that we can devise and provide resources that will help them navigate the changes, help them sustain the changes once they're implemented, and so that we can support them in the interim leading up to this. So here you'll see some of the analysis over the next couple of slides that we'll be sharing. This slide here represents the impact to our elderly and disabled families. By increasing their adjusted contribution amount to 32%, about 8,700 of our 9,300 elderly disabled families will see an increase of up to $99. Right? And this is based on the earnings that they have reported with us on file. So having this type of information is really going to allow us to get resources and tools available to assist these families as we transition to these changes. Here you'll see a slide that summarizes the number of work-able families that we have. So of the 4,950 work-able families that we have, about 1,900 of them will be subject to paying the minimum contribution amount. We did list here the number of adults that they have in their household, so you can see a breakdown of what their family composition looks like. And the other 3,000 of the work-able families will be subject to paying 40% of their adjusted income as their new contribution amounts. Here is a more detailed slide that we have been using in preparation for these changes, specifically in our Achievement Academy, where we provide work readiness, financial literacy, connection to supportive services, and public benefit screening. Understanding really what the impact will be to our families at large is really allowing us to provide a suite of tools so that we can help families prepare for these changes. We also recognize that there will be some families who have a greater impact, and for that we've also included a hardship plan, which I'm going to ask Deborah to speak on.
Good morning, and thank you, Asusena. So we developed a hardship policy to provide assistance to families facing additional challenges with transitioning into the new family contribution structure. If needed, these eligible families will receive an extra 6 months to build their self-sufficiency, and they'll be required to work with an Achievement Academy work readiness specialist and engage in activities like credit counseling, job readiness, job training, reemployment, and benefits applications. And like we said before, obtaining public input is not only an important part of the HUD approval process, but also aligns with our core values. We completed a formal noticing process to provide our voucher families and the public with an opportunity to review our proposal and provide comments. We received 45 comments, 33 of which were relevant to the plan. The comments demonstrated a need for additional information specific to their cases and their impacts, including a few from some seniors. We posted the plan on our website and our community engagement platform, held an informational workshop, a public hearing, and today we're requesting you take action on the proposed changes. Now, before any changes happen, HUD will need to review and approve the plan, which we expect to occur sometime in late February or early March. After HUD approves the plan, we'll begin sending periodic notices to impacted families specifically explaining what is changing, the reasons why they are necessary, and their impact. Notices will include information on resources like our Achievement Academy that offers self-sufficiency building programs and services at no cost. They'll also include resources like food, low-cost childcare, and utility assistance provided by our nonprofit and other partners. We anticipate the updates to be applied in around the last quarter of the calendar year 2026. Now, engaging with our community early and often is a critical part of our process to ensure we effectively reach our impacted families. To share important information regarding the proposed changes and foster a collaborative effort with policymakers, advocacy, industry, and community groups, we conducted more than 35 briefings. We're also working with our community-based organizations to leverage their community connections and to host resource fairs at various locations to bring resources directly to our voucher families. Did I go? We've identified a We've identified a number of potential resources to assist families with successfully transitioning to the proposed changes. And as a part of our next steps, we are following up with our community partners to assist us with further building out our resources webpage to help us make sure it's easy to navigate and to suggest any additional resources family may need. This will be an ongoing effort throughout our process. And the languages that we've provided these resources in 8 languages. They're being translated as we speak. And those languages include Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, Arabic, Tagalog, Farsi, Somali, and Amharic. Lisa?
Thank you, Deborah. And I just want to share on the community engagement and resource process. The overwhelming desire to help us help our families that we have seen as we have engaged with community has been amazing. And in fact, in a time where I think I can speak personally, these changes are hard for all of us to make. This isn't ideal. This is not where we want to find ourselves. I think we all feel that way across the agency and across policymakers as well. But it's still, we think, the better option. But there's also a lot of change right now that's going on across our country and in our community. And when you're going to have conversations with community advocates, community-based organizations who serve a lot of our same population and families every day, it's not easy to come with a difficult message. The just overwhelming offers of support and just sort of being good thought partners and offering community space, offering ideas of where else we can go, what other resources we could bring forward. I'm just gonna say, made this a lot easier for me. Not that this isn't easy, but it. No, I'm gonna rephrase that. It's not that it made it easier. It gave me hope. It gave me hope that we have the resources and the care, that system of care in our community to make sure that our families stay stable. And I think we will learn from this experience how much more we can refer people to, right? So we have always referred people to resources. We do that all the time. The reality is people come to us all the time for housing and all kinds of other needs. And a lot of times we don't have a lot to offer them, but we always try to offer them, these are the different wait lists in the community. This is 211, here's the food bank, here's this community resource, here's the hub for, people experiencing homelessness. We're always doing everything we can to connect people to resources, but we will learn through this process how much is really out there. But more than anything, I just want to thank all of our partners that are committed to working with us through this process. It has been sort of like overwhelmingly heartwarming to feel the support, not just for us as an agency, and we really felt that, but really for our clients and the families we serve. We will share that we still have a lot of changes at a federal policy level. There is a small possibility that our reserves could still be at risk. I feel like if we work hard, we're going to spend them before they get to us anyway. We've got a lot of money going out in rental assistance every month, so there's a good chance we'll spend it before they get to us. But that's always a reality. There is still the possibility that federal funding will come in lower than what we've anticipated, though we've worked really diligently to understand what we think is likely to happen at a federal level if we get a permanent budget. You are all welcome to advocate for a continuing resolution at this point, because so far we think that would be better. So we'll take that for as long as we can get it. And as I said earlier, cost containment is a necessary strategy across agency departments, activities, and programs. It is not just relevant to the voucher program. The voucher program is in front of us right now because it's really the one we have to figure out how to turn around the fastest, the soonest, and keep all of our families housed. But the cost increases we're seeing in inflation of services, supplies, or insurance, all those things that impact the 4,300 units that we own and manage, just the cost of doing business is affecting us everywhere. And we also have federal, state, and local funding across different departments of our agency. And it's not just federal government that we're seeing tough times in. We're also seeing our state have to try to balance lack of federal funds and what that means in their programs. We're seeing it at a county and a city level as well. So in these times, it's just important to understand that while we were talking about the voucher program, and we are in a situation of asking families to pay more, we are doing a very thorough analysis at cost containment across our agency, and that is really a core component of the strategic plan that got approved in October, both cost containment and revenue generation. So that's just something to bear in mind as well. We will continue to be talking about that over the coming months as we go into the next fiscal year. So we are asking the board to consider the actions in front of you and the approvals on this side and approve the recommended actions by the staff.
Okay. That is the staff presentation. We have one speaker slip on this item. Dante
Golden, you're right. You're correct.
Golden.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dante. Dante, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners, members of the public. My name is Dante Golden, Senior Director of Policy at the San Diego Housing Federation. We represent members who develop and finance affordable housing and have done that for about 3 decades now. First, wanted to express our sincere appreciation for the Housing Commission's partnership, specifically for the proactive outreach your team has conducted regarding the Pathway to Success program updates. This engagement has been both meaningful and necessary. Over recent weeks, your staff has thoroughly briefed our Board of Developers, our Board of Directors, Developers Forum, and then Resident Services Roundtable. This ensured that our entire membership, from project sponsors to on-the-ground service providers, really understand the changes that can be prepared effectively from this amendment. This clarity is really critical for our members. Our members serve thousands of households across San Diego County who rely on consistent information about program changes that really affect them. By taking the time to engage each of our stakeholder groups, the Commission has directly helped our organizations and developers strengthen resident communications, prepare for program augmentation, and then ensure families continue to receive reliable support through this difficult time. We thank the Commission for its willingness to answer a ton of questions and incorporate feedback in their collaboration with the broader housing ecosystem. The San Diego Housing Federation and our members remain committed partners in advancing housing affordability and stability, and really look forward to our continued partnership with the Commission on this amendment and ongoing program changes. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dante. Appreciate your comments. All right, that is the last of the speaker slips on this item from the public. I will open it up to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Cushman.
To say, Lisa says this is a train wreck, I think it's a tsunami. I mean, for these folks, this is drowning time. And I could not be more proud to be a part of this commission for the magnificent, fair solution that staff came up with. I just think y'all, I have not seen as good a work in a long time. An impossible problem. When you started, I'm sure you had no idea how in the world you were going to try to solve the problem. I think it's a fair solution for everybody. I was pleased to hear the hardship program for those who need some time to help adjust. I mean, if it's 6 months and they already know now that it's starting to get out there, they've got 8 or 9 months. So I don't know what more you could have done to save this. And my hat is off to all of you. I think it's a fair, magnificent solution of an impossible problem. Because as you say, Lisa, we don't know what's going to happen in Washington. They may cut the heck more. There's no way to know. So it's fair for everybody. It's the best we can do. And I hope folks realize how hard the staff has had to work to come to this solution. So I'm certainly pleased to support this project and happy to move it at the appropriate time.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, I want to kind of piggyback on Commissioner Cushman's response. So I think this is the most equitable response that we could do. It's going to create some pain for some people, bottom line. But the pain that will create for more people getting kicked off the program, this is the most equitable solution for everybody. And so I wholeheartedly agree with it.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Vice Chair Klempner.
I want to say a few things, and I think part of what is hard about the affordable housing world, especially for the past 5 years, has been a little bit of we're lacking context. We're not really sure what the expectation of these programs is. For my entire life, as a country, we had an approach that there was a safety net around housing called Section 8, and people had agreements and disagreements about how it was administered and how it worked and where it should be distributed and this and that. But there was generally a consensus that we needed an affordable housing program for people whose income did not meet the demands of keeping housing. And I think we just need to be really blunt that for some time now, we may have kind of wanted to be in a bit of denial, but that program has been shrinking. And it's harder to spot the shrinking when it's occurring in relation to the demand. So it's not that our budget got smaller in 1 year for rental assistance. It's that over the course of 5 years, our costs of the rental assistance went up 80%, and our budget crept up at little tiny incremental single-digit numbers. And so I think it's really important that we explain clearly to the public, Section 8 is not a functional solution to housing in this country. It is a small program where we are serving, with our wait list included, maybe 1 out of 10 people. We've gone from this being a program that's going to be accessible to everyone who qualifies, or that's the goal, to we're watching it diminish down to serving. It's basically a lottery. You're playing the lottery as to whether you get any assistance with your rent. And I think we have to stop presenting false hope to people. What we're doing right now is we are managing the decline of Section 8. That's what's happening. And I think that we're doing that the best that we can. I can tell you that when I came onto this commission, if we had had this circumstance that we were approving right now, the feedback from the public and our residents and all of the community-based organizations would be completely different than it is right now. And, there's a few things that we can do our best at, and I think that Lisa and the whole agency has been doing their best at. One of those things is to be clear and transparent and open and honest with our community, our entire community, our outreach and service providers, our residents. We need to be really bluntly honest about what is going on here, because part of what softened this news, I think, was that we had been saying for a while that there was bad news coming. And people understand that we have been taking every step we can possibly come up with to do this in order of our priorities and our mission, starting with, at the top of the organization, how much can we trim consolidate, control our costs, and working our way down through our staff organization. And then when we get to our clients and our residents, trying to triage this so that the people in the most dire circumstances are bearing the smallest costs. But, and had we not been doing that all for a while now, I think that this news would be landing with a big thud because what we're effectively telling folks is that our national budget issues right now are being balanced on the backs of people with the lowest incomes and the highest rental hardship. And our moral responsibility here is to have done everything possible that we can do before we send rent increase notices to people who can't afford it. And so that's our commitment. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank Lisa, who before she had even wrapped her arms around the numbers that we're dealing with here on her very first press conference, when the announcement of her being hired as the CEO, one of the first words out of her mouth was that we are going to have some hard times and some bad news. And that is my commitment, is to bring those forward openly and honestly. And the longer that we let these structural deficits go on, the harder it is going to be. So I'm very, very appreciative that we are planning for 27, 28, and 29, and doing the most that we can do for folks, because it would be a lot easier to make 2026 a little bit easier and let somebody else. I'm not going to be on this board when 27, 28, 29 happen, but I'm sure glad that we're having the hard conversation in 26, because me getting to skip out on this would only make things worse. And then I think that the last thing I want to say is that you mentioned that the role of the community in stepping up. I'm going to be a little bit more dire than that, in that the resources in our community and every community are not built for the scale of the challenge. They are built for a world in which Section 8 is a functional program that's doing its job. And so we're going to have to, as a larger community, figure out what we do about these issues, because we are one of the least affordable places in the country, and that has been getting worse, and the housing is the major driver of that. And so we are going to have to find other ways to address these problems that do not rely on the federal government. If our entire housing and homelessness policy is relying on resources and policies coming from the federal government, we are in deep, deep trouble. There is no additional sign that we should wait for that no help will be coming. We have reached the point the federal government will not solve our housing problem, our homeless problem. It will be most likely doing less and less and less each year. So that means that, not just every community organization and 501c3 that's scraping together money to, put food in people's pantries and, pay their utilities. I mean, all those things are wonderful, but we're going to have a much bigger conversation than that, because the largest piece of this whole equation for 60 plus years is coming undone right now. So that's all I have to say.
I agree. Okay. I will just say that, when we received the briefing on this, and I want to echo one thing that Vice Chair Klempner just said, Lisa, you've been great as a partner on this, because you've been very clear that we can't sugarcoat it. This is a situation that we have seen coming. We have all understood that I've always hated saying it, but I've always said things are going to get worse. And the thing that is I'm most impressed about, Commissioner Christman said this, that proud to be part of this team. I remember during COVID when we were receiving all the federal dollars, and we were trying to make a difference in the situations for households, that many of which are our clients, by using the federal dollars to pay down the debt. And we had to change the way we did it. We had to change the way we thought about it. And Jeff Davis, I remember we had this conversation. We had to go mobile. We had to go to people and give them this solution and connect them to the answer. And in this instance, as Vice Chair Klumpner said, this is a change in a structure that has been a part of the fabric of not just this community, but communities all over the country. I sent Lisa an article recently about the problem that Los Angeles has in front of them. 14,500 families at risk because of these changes. And when we look at the number that we have of 1,700, which equates to about 6,000 individuals, the beauty of this situation is we've decided to lean in. Sometimes you can be so distracted by the problem that you just throw your hands up and you got to know what to do. And what I've seen of this organization in the last 5 years in particular is we've become better at problem solving. It's easy to step back and say we've been dealt a bad hand. As Vice Chair Klumpner just said, one of the most expensive markets in the country. And people struggle every day, not just with finding a place to live, but staying in a place. And this solution that has been created is the right approach, because in the end, this community has to be in this together. It's not just about the Housing Commission. As Vice Chair Clinton just said, it's about all of our partners. I give the staff credit for the outreach. Deborah, I've received emails and text messages from people who normally would complain, but they're like, Mitch, we're all in this together. I take my hat off. Dr. John Warren said, Mitch, I'm all in. He was appreciative of the approach to go out there. I know Ellen Nash. I think that the I always tell people that it's sometimes this job is hard because you feel the pain of the people that you're impacting by decisions like this. But the staff has done a brilliant job putting this plan together. And so, and Mr. C will remember this, when we were going through the crisis of the financial crisis of 2008, we knew that we had to be a leader at the food bank and connecting to others. I think Vice Chair Clement and I had this conversation last week in a briefing, but we're already having a conversation because we have a number of people who are going to feel this pinch, paying more, needing more, right? Simple as that, paying more and needing more on other ends. And the work that we're doing with the homeless youth organizations and trying to set up pantries to help them feed youth. The work that we've been doing over the last 2 months has been impressive because we were preparing for this moment. And even as much as we prepared, this will get worse. But at least we're off and running. And so I would say that the theme for us as we go through this is an organization, you do what you say you will do. And what we've said we're going to do is we're going to be as cooperative and as helpful as we possibly can in trying to protect people that depend on us and the people that are going to come to us, because there will be a surge. And we've been talking about that. And I think we just, as long as we remember that you're going to have a lot of people for the first time who are going to be in that surge, and you're going to have some people with this increase that are going to be feeling anxiety. And our job is to not just say that we're in this together, but it is really to be to create awareness about opportunities that might help them in other areas, and then help create that access. Sometimes I would tell people that it's not enough to say, well, we sent out an email or we put out a flyer, right? You've been doing the legwork on this, and that will be remembered forever because, you've been providing solutions the old-fashioned way, walking and talking to people. So I think this is the right approach. I know that we need a vote. We need a motion on this. Lisa, do you want to say anything before we do this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say we've talked a lot about what we've done from community outreach and engagement and trying to reach all the folks that also serve our families. This is just the beginning of that process. So there's a lot more to come. And to your point about you got an email, right? A lot of times folks don't engage until there's a problem, until something's wrong. Our goal is to get to them now. That's why, as Deborah mentioned, early and often, right? The more time folks have to transition and prepare, the more time we have the ability to engage, our partners have the ability to engage with our families, the more successful this is going to be. So this is really, in my mind, to a large degree, the beginning of what's next as far as that goes. And just briefly to speak, to Commissioner Klumpler's comments, and I know you touched on this too, Mitch, you're right. This is a program that is shrinking. And when you disinvest, when you either do not increase costs, when the costs of running a program are increasing, and then additionally, you decrease costs, and you also decrease administrative costs even more, so there's not the staff to run the program. This is happening across the country. This program is shrinking across the country. And even if public policy priorities change 3 years from now, 4 years from now, the reality is once the pain has already happened, they don't usually bring more money back, right? It's sort of like creates the new normal, and the new normal is less. But when we talk about this not being a tool that is going to serve our community's needs from a housing crisis perspective, deeply affordable housing, every time it's built in this city, is based on vouchers. We don't have any. Permanent supportive housing, almost every time it's built, is based on vouchers. When it's not based on vouchers, it's based on federal continuum of care funding, which the last NOFO that is under litigation right now, eradicated. Right? They just won't fund it anymore. So when we think of permanent supportive housing and how we approach and serve folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness and who have high barriers, we can assume that resource is gone, except for when a unit turns over. So when we think about, and I presented at the RTFH conference yesterday, along with 2 other housing authorities in the county, and the conversation I had and the ask I made of that audience is we have to start relooking at how we build a system of care, because the system of care as it exists today is gone. It's changing. So we have to be really, really honest and frank about that, because if we don't address and name the problem, we can't solve for it. We can't bring our heads together and collaborate as a community that we have done successfully. COVID was an incredible successful collaboration across our county, but our tools are changing. We are going to have to develop new tools and new funding sources to do that, because you're right, it's not going to come from a federal level. That's pretty clear. It's already disappearing.
As heartbreaking as it is, the change is here, and
It's a call to action.
It's a call to action. So we're getting started. We've answered it. So, all right. So we have a motion by Vice Chair Klumpner. I know Commissioner Cushman is second. Any further comments? I will say this to. Go ahead.
I just want to thank all of the staff, Lisa and the team, for really being thoughtful partners around solving this very difficult problems. And I think much of what has been said already is what I also feel. So thank you.
Okay, so we've a motion, a second, and all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. No opposition, no abstentions. I want to say thank you to, again, the staff and the team. Thank you to my fellow commissioners. It's during tough times like this where, again, you show what the culture of your organization is and how strong it is. And again, we're not throwing our hands up. We're getting started. So, all right. That concludes this item. And we will now move into we need to move into a closed session. So the board will meet in closed session today. Before the board goes into closed session, we will receive public comments. There are no speaker slips, so I'll ask General Counsel Chuck Christensen to announce the closed session agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The San Diego Housing Commission will meet in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, which is item Roman numeral 4A, which is a conference with labor negotiators, and that's the only item on closed session.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll wait a moment to clear the room, and then we will begin the closed session. And after the closed session, the board will reconvene in open session, and Mr. Christensen will announce the actions taken during the closed session. All right, this is Mitch Mitchell, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. The board has concluded its closed session at 10:58 and is reconvening in open session. General Counsel Chuck Christensen will now announce the report out of the closed session, and then Lisa Jones will close it out with a couple of comments.
The San Diego Housing Commission met in closed session to discuss its closed session agenda, which is Roman numeral 4A, and unanimously gave instructions to the negotiators concerning this matter. That concluded the matters that were discussed in closed session.
So I just wanted to take a moment to thank the board for being here today. This is a special meeting which we had to add to our calendar to make sure that we could keep a timeline that gave as much room as possible for communication with clients as we go through the Path to Success process. So I just want to appreciate you. When we get into December, it's a little hard to do board meetings. Thank you all for making time. I also want to say a thank you to Commissioner Hester, who mentioned a few months ago that it would be nice to see if we could find local bakeries that we could use as part of the sustenance through these board meetings. And I was just embarrassed and chagrined that I had not thought about it myself. Is that we can all always grow and evolve. So we are trying a new local bakery, which I can't say out loud in public, obviously, because I can't advertise. And we will continue to sort of maybe try to do some rotating. So thank you for that. That is a very good point. We've got to support our local businesses. So on that,
shop local.
Thank you for your support over the last year. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have the board that I have. You care. You spend time. You commit hours and hours, Mr. Cushman. I'm the only one I get emails at 2 o'clock in the morning from. When you show up fully, and you care about the people we serve and our staff as much as we do. So just want to end the last meeting of the year in gratitude and appreciation for the people and the professionals and the leaders you are for our agency. Thank you.
When you goofed us up because now we think it's Friday.
Exactly right. I know. I was at the elevator today.
That's what I thought. That's why I was practically late. Oh, Friday's always an easy traffic day. No, it's a Thursday.
All right. This concludes the board meeting for today. The meeting is officially adjourned at 11:01. And happy holidays, and thank you to everybody for everything you do on this team. Bye.